Alrighty, welcome to this week's video. This week has been a little bit different, so it's going to be a little bit shorter of a video. I didn't get as much done as I was hoping to get done, but this is kind of the pace I'm expecting from now on. So this week, you'll see there's a lot less projects here, and there's a few reasons why. First off, we can now, we've always been able to create projects. It's been basically the same project, so hello YouTube. We can put in a little red color, and you'll see if we press save now, it tells me that we haven't filled it out properly. So that was last week, was being able to create projects. They show up here now, and look, it actually shows up here properly. So now when we press here, now the edit and delete functionality works. So this was kind of, it took longer than I was expecting it to, but not because it's difficult, so to speak. I did a lot of refactoring this past week, so we can see we can edit this. We can, let's capitalize this guy, as it should be, and we can maybe change the color to a darker red. Press save. Look at that. Those changes have now shown up. And if we go back here, ta-da, it's still fine. I don't know if you expected it to change at all. So that's cool. We can now edit these projects. So let's go here and look at deleting projects. So let's go through here. Now, deleting is pretty much just the same, but now what we're doing is I'm eventually potentially going to add archiving projects so you don't have to delete them to get rid of them. But I think that right now deleting is going to be just easier. And I wanted to make it something, because projects are going to store so much data and be so valuable, I wanted to make it so that it's a little bit difficult. You can't just press delete. So this little modal window pops up, and it tells you to type in the name to confirm deleting the project. So let's do hello YouTube with our exclamation point, and look, now we can see when it doesn't, until you type it in properly, you type in the name properly, then it lets you delete it. So now it's gone, it's deleted, never to be seen again. So that is deleting, and that is editing. That's pretty much all I've been doing this past week, but I will explain now why it took so long. So this is what our new and improved magical modal window looks like. So this is actually, and the funny thing is that I could technically simplify it even further. I moved all the modal window stuff out to a new class thing, just so that it can be all on its own. And what it lets me do is, you see we have our open. So I won't get too in the nitty-gritty details here, but the basic gist is all of the modal window stuff is off on its own little file. So I can reuse it and create multiple different types of modal windows without having to rebuild the modal window multiple times. And so that just lets us collect this up to the modal window stuff. Technically, these selectors can just be put into a file, so we don't even need this yet. But we get out our function to open and close the modal window. And what I did is I said, okay, when I open the modal window, I want to add some wrapper stuff to it. So I can set in a function to populate the modal window, populate its title of the text, title of the modal window. We can even technically in here populate the name and coloring styles for the save button. We give a function to tell us what to do when we press the save button. And then we can also say these three different inputs, which are going to be added to it, are important and need to be all valid before you enable the save button here. So we can see this is just what it looks like. It's literally just HTML stuff that we can throw in to create new buttons within the modal window. So every time we open the modal window, we are populating it with inputs. So that might seem a little bit counterintuitive, but what it lets us do is we can create multiple different modal windows. Like you just saw, I walked through 3 different modal windows: creating a new project, editing a project, and deleting a project. All 3 of those are different modals, but the only thing that's different with them is the inputs and the styling stuff. And on the back end, the only thing, we only have one modal window. So the one modal window just gets populated with the inputs, and then it gets removed. And so I spent a lot of time messing with that. ChatGPT was super helpful when it came to, I didn't realize that I was adding the event listeners to the button and then never removing them when we switched to a different type of modal window. So you can see we have our submit submit new project, and this is what happens when we press that submit button. So let's see here. So if we go back here, so now you can see creating new inputs for our modal window, setting the title. Then we just saw this is all the functionality right here when we submit, when we press that submit button. If it is, of course, valid. If it's not valid, then you can see we throw a little error here. So then, and right here, this is our call to actually create the project, which is often its own file, which makes it even better. So this is like super. So what I'm hoping is that I'm going to end up using this a lot in other places. So the hope is that I didn't waste a whole bunch of hours building this modular modal window when we're only using it in one place. Because I was like, in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to use this everywhere. So I want to have it built to make it super easy to use everywhere. So that was the little bit of a gamble I took this week. I probably should have waited, but then again, I would have had to create 3 different types of modal windows that would have been for submitting a new project, editing projects, and deleting projects. And so instead of creating 3 of those, I just created 3 different ways to open it. So now let's get into velocity here. So that was pretty much everything that happened this past week, was all redesigning that modal window, making it work for editing and deleting. So you can see this is kind of our stats. We went over this last week. This is part of our tracking thing. So let's see. Only thing new-ish is that now that this is our 2nd sprint technically, and we're going on to our 3rd, is that we can start looking at stats about our sprints. So we can estimate, like, it's because we've only spent about 20 hours so far between the previous 2 weeks. We can say it takes us about 10 hours practically per sprint, even though I only spent like probably 5 or 6 hours this past week. So as time goes on, these numbers will get more accurate and be more averaged out. We complete an average of 3 story points per project, or per sprint, because I only got 2 story points worth of stuff done this last week. So we can see here, this is what it looked like last week, and then you can see with this fancy animation this week. So you can see we didn't get as much done this week as we did last week, but we are still pretty good on track to hit 13 sprints practically. So somewhere around here is when we should be finishing the project. Same thing for our burn down chart. You can see, look, instead of adding new projects, we actually got stuff done. So that's pretty cool. And all of that to say, last week completed deleting the projects, editing the projects. Both of those were about 1 story point is what I estimated. And most of that time was spent refactoring the modal window. At least 3 to 4 hours of the time spent. I did make more of the files modular, still have not implemented testing, and did not get a chance to implement the project pages, but I did get started on it. So this week, what I'm hoping to do is finish the project pages, at least a template and a foundation, so that when we go into creating tasks and task lists and task prototypes and all that sort of stuff, that can be done within this project page and as a kind of like something inside of that. So that's my hope, is that we can get project page a template. I'm thinking just a simple tabbed design where you'll have like up top, you can just kind of like be boop, 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 like tasks, task lists, task prototypes, settings, that type of thing, and then stats and stuff for within our project page. So I'm hoping that that's really all I'm going to end up doing. I'll probably add a way to edit the project from the project page and probably delete it from the project page. But you'll only be able to create projects from our project manager page, at least right now anyway. So that is that, and that's pretty much it. I might have to keep moving this create project tests and off. This is the last thing though, is creating project pages as the last thing for project management, and then we'll be done it, which would be crazy that we finished it in like 3 or 4 weeks. So the other thing I want to do is refactor and redesign notifications, all those error messages and all of the success messages. I want to make them toast notifications, and I'm thinking, and I don't want to do this preemptively, but I'm thinking eventually I'm going to have to implement some sort of command design pattern, or some sort of it's either command design pattern or like I think it's command is the name of it. But basically what it lets you do is to undo things. So when you press like delete a project, there will be a little notification that pops up and said, do you want to undo that action? And then you can press that and it will undo whatever you just did, which just makes it, adds a little bit more forgiveness. Then you can also say, like, whenever you're editing a project, if you want to undo your edit, a little thing will pop up, and it will only pop up for a couple of seconds. So if it's like 5-10 seconds, so it's like if you do something by accident, you're like, oh crap, then I want to have some little, the ability to do that is a little bit more complicated than I'm making it sound. It will require a pretty hefty redesign, but if I do that up front, then won't have to go back. And so it's the question is, how valuable is this? How valuable is the undo system? Because if it is super valuable, then it would be worth it to spend the time now before I've built up all this stuff. But right now I'm not sure how valuable that is. So I will spend some more time thinking about undoing, because that might be something for a week or two from now. Or later. So yeah, that's pretty much all I've been doing this past week. So hopefully we will have some project pages to look at and be able to actually start, creating task management and all the actual like bones, or more of the database and bone type stuff for this. So, ooh, I forgot I could do this. Ooh. So anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. We are doing pretty good so far. We're not doing too shabby. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week.